They break you with permission, not with fists, not with fire, not even with betrayal. They break you by making you believe you need their approval to exist. That's the real violence, the slow bleed, the kind that doesn't leave marks on the skin, just scars on the soul. They don't defeat you by winning. They defeat you by convincing you to ask for mercy. And once you do, that's when the leash clicks into place, invisible, silent, deadly. But here's the secret they never saw coming. You learned how to wear that leash like a crown. You didn't just survive the breaking. You studied it. You dissected every crack, every lie, every backhanded compliment they used like a scalpel. You watched them celebrate your collapse like it was a party they'd been planning for years. And you smiled, not because you were broken. No, you smiled because you finally saw the truth. They needed you broken to feel whole. Their power only exists in your silence. Their confidence only stands on your surrender. And the second you stopped begging, the second you stopped explaining, the second you stopped performing pain for their entertainment, that's when the balance shifted. Not with a scream, not with a war cry, but with a whisper that echoed louder than any riot. I don't need you to believe in me. I already do. That's when you became dangerous. Not because you're angry, not because you're hurt, but because you're awake. And an awake man is the most terrifying thing in the world to a room full of sleepwalkers. They don't fear your rage. They fear your clarity. They don't fear your fists. They fear your stillness because stillness means you've stopped reacting. Stillness means you've started calculating. Stillness means you're no longer playing their game. You're redesigning the board, and now you move like a shadow with a stopwatch. Precise, patient, unhurried. You don't rush revenge. You let it marinate. You don't chase closure. You become it. You used to think strength was about noise, about proving, about showing up loud and leaving wreckage. But real power is walking into a room and feeling the air thicken. Not because you said a word, not because you flexed, but because they remember. They remember the last time they underestimated you. They remember the silence after they thought they'd won. They remember the way you looked at them, not with hate, not with pain, but with pity, like you were already 3 steps ahead, watching their downfall like a movie you'd already seen. That look, that's what haunts them, not your anger, not your words, but the quiet certainty in your eyes that said, "You're not the predator here. You're the lesson." And now you don't prove anything. You don't explain. You don't justify. You simply exist. And your existence becomes their punishment. They wanted you to beg. You stayed silent. They wanted you to crack. You laughed. They wanted you to disappear. You became inescapable. Not through noise, not through drama, but through presence. Your name lingers in conversations you're not even in. Your shadow stretches longer than their lies. You don't need to speak. The weight of what you've endured speaks for you, and the funniest part, they thought they were breaking you. But every hit, every lie, every betrayal was just another brick in the foundation you didn't know you were building. You didn't rise despite them. You rose because of them. They weren't your destroyers. They were your architects. You don't carry grudges. You carry receipts. In silence, you don't confront liars. You let time do the exposing. You don't defend your worth. You let your results do the talking. And when they finally realize you've outgrown the room they tried to trap you in, it's too late. You're already in the next chapter, already building the empire they thought they'd burned, already living the life they tried to sabotage. And the best part? You don't gloat, you don't rub it in, you don't even acknowledge their shock. Because true power isn't in their reaction, it's in your lack of one. You don't need their applause, you don't need their regret, you don't need their anything. You've already moved on, and that's what kills them, not your success, but your indifference, because now you understand the game. It was never about winning. It was about outlasting. It was about being the last one standing, not because you fought the hardest, but because you refused to fall. You didn't just survive the fire. You learned how to breathe smoke. You didn't just endure the cold. You became immune to it. You stopped seeking love in places that only offered poison. You stopped trusting hands that had already betrayed you. You stopped explaining your pain to people who only wanted to weaponize it. And in that silence, in that solitude, you found something far more valuable than approval. You found authority over your mind, over your emotions, over your destiny. Now you don't react, you respond. And there's a world of difference. A reaction is panic. A response is strategy. A reaction is noise. A response is silence with intent. You don't swing back when they try to knock you down. You just stand there, calm, centered, unmoved, and that stillness, that's the knife. Because they expected rage, they expected tears, they expected collapse, but they didn't expect composure. They didn't expect a man who had already seen the end of their little schemes and found them amusing. You don't fight chaos with chaos. You fight it with order, with precision, with a smile that says, "I've already won. I'm just letting you finish losing." You've turned pain into a weapon, not by screaming about it, not by wearing it like a badge, but by mastering it, by studying it, by letting it sharpen you instead of shatter you. You don't hide your scars, you don't flaunt them, you just use them as reminders, as fuel, as proof that you've been to hell and came back with a map. And now you walk through life like a ghost with a mission, not here to haunt the past, but to shape the future. You don't need revenge. Revenge is for people still trapped in the wound. You're beyond that. You've become karma, not the kind that burns, but the kind that balances, the kind that lets people hang themselves with their own rope while you sip tea and watch the show. And, oh, it's entertaining. The way they panic when your name comes up, the way their voices drop, the way they suddenly remember they have somewhere else to be. You don't have to say a word. Your silence does the work. Your presence does the damage. You don't need to prove you've changed. The air changes when you walk in. People feel it. The liars sweat. The fakes freeze. The snakes go quiet. Not because you threaten them, but because they know. They know you see through them. They know you remember every lie. They know you're not fooled. And they know, deep in their gut, that you could end them with a sentence. But you won't, because you don't need to. Their guilt is doing the job for you. Their conscience is their executioner. And you're just the witness, the calm, unblinking, unbothered witness. That's the power they'll never replicate. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, but the quiet, relentless, inevitable kind. the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that doesn't need to. You don't have to prove you're dangerous. You don't have to flex your strength. You don't have to explain your journey. Your energy does it for you. Your aura, your frequency. You've become the kind of man people feel before they see, the kind of presence that alters the atmosphere. And that's not something you learn. That's something you earn. Through fire, through betrayal, through silence, through choice. You didn't just survive the storm. You became the weather. And now they whisper about you. Not because of what you did, but because of what you could do. Not because you're loud, but because you're capable. Not because you're angry, but because you're unpredictable. They don't know if you'll forgive. They don't know if you'll forget. They don't know if you're planning their downfall or just ignoring them. And that uncertainty, that's your power. That's your leverage. That's your art. You've mastered the most dangerous skill of all. Strategic silence. You don't confirm. You don't deny. You don't react. You just exist. And your existence keeps them guessing, keeps them nervous, keeps them off balance, and in a world full of noise, the man who doesn't speak is the one everyone listens to. You don't need to prove you've changed. The proof is in the way they flinch when you enter the room, in the way their lies collapse under your gaze, in the way their confidence evaporates like mist in sunlight. You don't need to remind them of the past. You don't need to throw receipts. You don't need to scream your truth. Your silence is the truth. Your calm is the verdict. Your smile is the sentence. And the best part, you don't care if they understand. You don't care if they respect you. You don't care if they fear you, because you've already moved beyond their opinions. You've built a life they can't touch, a legacy they can't tarnish, a peace they can't disrupt. And when they finally realize you're not coming back to their level, when they see you've already built something higher, that's when the real punishment begins. Not because you attacked them, but because you left them. Not with drama, not with vengeance, but with indifference. You didn't fight your way out. You simply outgrew the battlefield. You evolved. You ascended. You became something they can't define, can't categorize, can't defeat. You're not their enemy. You're their ghost. The one they created, the one they ignored, the one who came back, not for war, but for witness. To watch them struggle in the ruins of their own making. To see them beg for the attention they once denied you. To hear them whisper your name like a curse, like a prayer, like a warning. And you just smile, because you know the truth they'll never admit. You were never the problem. You were the mirror, and no amount of denial can erase the reflection. So let them talk. Let them scheme. Let them pretend you're irrelevant. You don't need to respond. You don't need to engage. You don't need to prove a damn thing, because time is on your side, and time always exposes the truth. It always reveals the players. It always separates the real from the fake. And when that moment comes, when the masks fall and the lies collapse, you won't be surprised. You'll just nod, like you've been waiting for it, like you planned it. Because you did, not with force, not with noise, but with patience, with precision, with the quiet, unshakable certainty of a man who's already seen the ending and the punchline. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was build the monster they couldn't control, the psycho with a plan, the ghost with a grin, the king who never had to claim the throne, because everyone already bowed, and you just keep walking, silent, smiling, unstoppable, because you didn't survive the fire, you became it. Like, comment and tell the Batman I said hello.